All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the true story of Dimetrodon. It's an absolutely iconic, deeply fascinating, and honestly, heavily misunderstood creature that, well, you probably have completely wrong.
Not a dinosaur. Yep, despite what literally every single one of your childhood toy sets told you, this iconic creature was definitely not a dinosaur. We've kind of just grouped it in with T-Rex and Triceratops for decades, right? But the fossil record? It tells a completely different story.
You know the stuff? We've all seen that classic vintage art of them just stomping around in steamy jungles right next to massive reptiles. But the actual reality? They lived in an entirely different era, under entirely different planetary conditions. It's wild.
Check this out. They actually ruled the Earth tens of millions of years before the very first dinosaur even existed. To put that into perspective, they were thriving in a world that was just beginning to figure out large land-based food chains, separated from dinosaurs by this massive, almost unimaginable gulf of time.
So what were they? Well, they were actually synapsids, basically early branching stem mammals. And this is the crazy part. Believe it or not, Dimetrodon is actually more closely related to you and me than it is to any lizard, crocodile, or bird alive today. Wrap your head around that for a second. Which brings us to Section 2, the Permian Ice Age.
To really understand these guys, you gotta understand their world. They conquered this harsh, unforgiving environment during the early Permian Period, and it was far, far from that permanent tropical greenhouse we usually picture. The lush, steamy coal swamps of the previous era totally collapsed. In their place, a drier, much harsher landscape emerged, which opened up a huge opportunity for these mammalian ancestors to just rapidly evolve and take over.
They even survived an intense global freeze known as the Karoo Ice Age. We're talking vast glaciers locking up the Earth's moisture, creating extreme temperature differences. Imagine a sweltering hot equator on one hand and completely frozen poles on the other. That's the intense world they were navigating.
All right, Section 3, Mammalian Anatomy.
To survive and actually hunt in this rapidly changing, highly seasonal environment, their bodies went through some profound evolutionary leaps. They were basically packed with mammalian upgrades. Take their jaws, for example. They developed heterodonty. That means they possessed different kinds of teeth with varying functions. I mean, the name Dimetrodon literally translates to two measures of teeth. Unlike reptiles that just swallow their prey whole, this highly specialized bite, along with some brand new jaw muscles, allowed them to actually chew their food. A real game changer.
And it wasn't just their teeth. Fossilized trackways reveal they didn't just use that low, belly-dragging reptilian sprawl. No, they could push up into this super intimidating high walk stance by placing their feet closer together underneath their skeleton, kind of like a modern crocodile. It made them highly agile and incredibly commanding predators.
And they were incredibly resilient too. While they were mostly locked inside North America, one small species, Dimetrodon teutonus, which was only about the size of a badger, actually made it to a harsh, resource-scarce Europe. And that little guy left us a critical clue about their appearance.
Turns out they were scaly, not hairy. Fossilized skin impressions from Germany proved conclusively that their underside, limbs, and tail were heavily scaled. So yeah, the ancient ancestors of mammals definitely went through a scaly phase before they ever evolved hair.
Moving to Section 4, Apex Predator of the Food Chain.
So, all these adaptations, they made Dimetrodon the absolute apex predator of its day. 60! That is the staggering number of freshwater shark carcasses found directly associated with their teeth. It proves they were absolutely vicious aquatic hunters. Get this. One piece of fossilized shark cartilage even had multiple Dimetrodon teeth embedded directly into it.
But they didn't stop at sharks. They also mercilessly hunted these weird boomerang-headed amphibians called Diplocalus. When a drought hit, those amphibians would estivate, basically going dormant down in mud burrows. Dimetrodon would just sniff them out underground, dig them right up, and turn them into an easy, defenseless meal.
To stay on top in this super predator-heavy world, later species of Dimetrodon evolved these nasty, serrated Komodo dragon-like teeth. They were constantly adapting, basically turning their teeth into literal steak knives to inflict maximum damage and take down much bigger, tougher land prey.
All right, Section 5, the mystery of the dorsal sail.
You really can't talk about Dimetrodon without talking about its most famous, towering, and heavily misunderstood feature, that spectacular structure on its back. The latest and largest species sported a massive 1.5-meter sail.
Just picture that for a second. Imagine a top predator, roughly the size of a large alligator, carrying a sail nearly as tall as a human being on its back.
Now, we used to think these sails were essentially giant solar panels used for thermal regulation, but recent science completely shatters that old myth. For one, they lived right on the sweltering equator, plus modern thermal models prove the sails were actually terrible at heating the body. And, the nail in the coffin, close relatives thrived in the exact same environment with absolutely no sail at all.
So, what was it for? Today, paleontologists believe these bizarre structures were wild visual displays used for sexual selection and species identification. Think about it. In a harsh, scrubby environment, throwing up a giant, colorful sail was literally the ultimate way to stand out, attract a mate, and say, hey, look at me. Finally, Section 6, Legacy and Extinction.
Eventually, the world changed. As the Ice Age ended and the climate warmed up, new evolutionary pressures started mounting on the apex predators of the Permian. Around 270 million years ago, they were pushed into this mysterious extinction. A massive gap in the fossil record, known as Olson's Gap, kind of obscures exactly how they fell. But we do know they were soon replaced by even larger, newer synapsids.
They were these incredibly fierce stem mammals that laid the literal groundwork for us. But what do you guys think? What do you think their massive sails were really used for? Drop your best theories down in the comments, make sure to hit like on this explainer, and subscribe so you never miss out on the true history of our planet. See you next time!